Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, here with my uncut review of Silo, episodes 1 and 2 on Apple TV+. The synopsis on IMDb reads, men and women live in a giant silo underground with several regulations which they believe are in place to protect them from the toxic and ruined world on the surface. The notes for episode 1 say Sheriff Becker's plans for the future are thrown off course after his wife meets a hacker with information about the silo, and episode 2 says Juliet, an engineer, pieces together what might have led to a coworker's mysterious death. So what is this animal? I would describe it as a character-focused sci-fi mystery about a presumably post-apocalyptic future where the surface world is apparently toxic and they can't go up there, and so they are part of this society that has some kind of a constitution that keeps them from ever going to the surface. And if anyone ever says, I want to go to the surface, that's the hugest taboo, and they get sent to the surface permanently and never return. And as that's happened a number of times, people believe that everyone who's gone out has died because of the toxic environment and stuff. But there's a big mystery about whether or not what they understand to be happening and to be true about the outside world is actually true. And so that's kind of the big overriding mystery. The story is told in a kind of a pseudo-anthology style so far in the first 2 episodes anyway, and that would be my guess is how they're going to continue. The first 2 episodes partially overlap the same period of time. Not completely, there is some differences, but there's a significant overlap in the period of time they cover, and they focus on a different main character each time. And so that's what I mean. I think that probably each episode, or maybe 2 episodes at a time, will kind of maybe have one main protagonist whose story is resolved or just kind of left on a cliffhanger, maybe to be resolved at the very end of the season, and then they move on in the meantime to focusing on a different character. I think that's kind of what they're setting us up for in these first 2 episodes. I only watched the first 2 in part because they're releasing this on a schedule. The first 2 are dropped on the day of the premiere, but after that they're released on a weekly basis, which I'm not really a fan of. The big mystery, as I said, is what's the true nature of the outside world, but also what happened before this rebellion that they keep talking about that happened over 100 years ago. And at that time, basically records of their past before the rebellion were all destroyed. And so they don't know anything about their society or where they come from prior to 140 years or so in the past. And so that's a big question, is like, what is anything about their history? What are the powers that are seemingly ruling over people? And I think this is more of a question for the audience. I think they would say that, like, there's a judicial branch that gets mentioned, and they seem to be the mysterious authority over the people dwelling in the silo that only appear once in a while, and when they do, it's really serious business. But so we as audience members, though, I think are meant to ask, well, who is really in charge here? Who is this mysterious judicial group we see very little of? And why are they keeping secrets, seemingly, from this society underground? There's some retro tech in terms of, like, the computers they use and other things that suggest either an alternate history in which at one point when technology was at that place or a little prior to it, something went very differently in history than it did in our world, or I think it could just as easily be a method of keeping silo dwellers in the dark. That maybe it is supposed to be, not an alternate history thing, but whoever put these people down there just gave them very limited, like basically pre-internet technology is what it looks like. And I like that aesthetic. It's got kind of a cool vibe, and the rest of the silo reminds me of the underground city of Zion from the Matrix movies, But what really helps me engage with this show or not is the fact that with all these mysteries that are about the setting, as they're being explored by people who have personal stakes involved in getting the answers to these larger questions, because someone that they care about passed away, or someone that they care about suddenly changed very radically in ways that they don't understand. And so there's a very personal investment on the part of the main characters that we're following. I think that the big questions may not be answered until the end of the season, or perhaps the end of the series. I don't know how many seasons are intended for this show, but I wouldn't be surprised if I found myself were I to continue watching, frustrated with how slowly they get to some of the big revelations that I want. I understand that they got to keep those things off in the distance, but what I would rather they do is just like reveal the answers to all the big questions for this season that are posed at the beginning, and then generate a new status quo with new questions and new reasons to keep watching, rather than assume that the questions they're posing right now I'm going to hang on for, I don't know, 3 or 4 seasons to get the answers to. And I hope they don't dole things out that slowly. I am hesitant to invest in a show like this until the series, or at least the season, is all available for me to watch at once. And I know that it wasn't canceled and left in an unresolved state, but ended on its own terms as the storytellers intended. I've had too many experiences investing in shows that get canceled out from under me. So definitely like thrice bitten and quadruply shy when it comes to that stuff. Okay, let's talk about the cast just briefly. A handful of very familiar faces and a couple of stars. I'm guessing that's due to the pseudo-anthology format. Like, Tim Robbins and Common are 2 examples of actors that show up, have barely any lines, and then go away. And that, combined with how these first 2 episodes were structured, says to me, okay, each of them is going to get their own episode where, like, they're the main character at some point. That just seems like almost certainly what's going to be going on here. But the performances are all solid, even among faces that aren't as well known. And so the subtext, the quality of those performances really does help me to invest in these characters as people, which is really important to me. There are several Brit actors playing Americans, and British actors tend to do a better job doing American accents than the reverse. But it does, just knowing that they're British actors, have me tuned in to listening to their accents in a way that leaves me picking up on some of the telltale signs. Like, okay, there's a little artifact, of their natural British accent. But I think probably most people won't notice those things or be distracted by them. Okay, as far as like the stunts and visuals go, there's little to no stunt work that I recall at the moment, but the sets and the visual effects, which are usually limited to creating false backgrounds, I assume, I'm not actually sure how many false backgrounds they used, because it's really impressive. I mean, they either had a ton of extras at times and a gigantic set, and some of that I'm just like, that can't be. They could not have constructed a set that huge. But the fact that I'm asking that question says to me, man, they're doing some good work in terms of digital backgrounds, digital crowds and stuff like that, and digital sets in the background. So the net result makes me feel like this silo is huge and real, and so that is satisfying. The costumes and props also sell me on this rugged pseudo-post-apocalyptic future with retro tech. It's not this visual spectacle, but all the visual design elements and costume sets, props, and visual effects work together to help me believe in this world pretty effectively. Okay, as far as themes, is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this thing that might trigger some worthwhile thought or conversation? It's a theme that we've seen in a number of stories before, where the powers that be are keeping things from us. And there's some response of rebellion on the parts of the characters. I would imagine there's great potential for that to continue and to increase as the show goes on. But right now, at this point, mostly individuals are responding to truth being kept from them by embarking on a personal quest for truth of some kind. And that search, though, is done by these characters in isolation. And I think that can be kind of a mode that we can get ourselves into. We can content ourselves with saying, well, I don't agree with such and such, or I suspect that what I'm being told is not true or the right way to see things or view things. And so the internet age has really made it easy for us to go online and find those voices that our minds and emotions are already kind of leaning toward, and just kind of like, and that can feel like a search for truth. But if we're not careful, we can find ourselves only listening to the voices that we're already going to tend to agree with. And so really, a search for truth is best done not in isolation, but in community. And yes, that community can involve, in many cases, people that tend to see some things the way we do already, but it should also involve exploration of those who hold different views and dialogue with those who hold different views. Now, in this setting, in Silo, even having dialogue and expressing doubt is really frowned upon to the point that we can't really do that. But in Western society, particularly in America, we do have the freedom to actually have these conversations with other people that see things very different from us. But that ability is just atrophying rapidly, as it has been over the last 10 or however many years, especially with the onset of social media. And so this is really a skill that we want to regenerate in ourselves. And I think the local church is actually a fantastic place to do that. We're likely to find enough disagreement in the local church with others already to have opportunities to have conversations with people that we view things differently with. And but the doing that in the local church at least has that common foundation of grace and a desire to submit ourselves to Christ and how He wants us to handle dialogue and relationships. And so to me, as I see these characters going on their isolated searches for truth, as I think about what we tend to do, it's just a reminder to me, man, the local church is a great place. A healthy local church with a Bible focus, a grace focus, is a great place to keep those abilities in us, those dialogue abilities, from atrophying, and to really practice in a kind of a biblical Christian laboratory what it means to talk about the areas we disagree on and to search for truth in that kind of setting. So anyway, I have no idea what your tastes are in TV shows, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, well, good first impression with these 2 episodes, but wait for the whole series, or at least the whole season, to be completely out, able for you to digest at your own pace, and not have to pay for more than 1 month of Apple TV Plus to do that. This is not so compelling an experience that you're going to feel the need to invest and possibly set yourself up for disappointment at its cancellation. It's just not quite that kind of show. So at least wait to hear that it's been renewed for a second season, or is maybe just a one and done, 1 season experience. Probably not going to be that. But yeah, if you know it won't end unresolved, then it's worth it for you to get a single month of Apple TV Plus to watch these first 2 episodes and then possibly consider watching the whole season. This one is rated TVMA for language, sexual situations, and violence. And those are all my thoughts for now on Silo, episodes 1 and 2. Right now I'd like to take some time to write a tune for pre-made rhyme. The lyrics kind of never change, but the melody gets rearranged. I never know what I'll create to say how much I appreciate Dan Excel, Gabriel Stinson, Brian Franklin, Olin D. Branham, Drew Rubb, Winston Crutchfield, Libre, Justin D. Myers, Cosmic Fox, and Joel Nelson. Thank you for supporting me at SBP and CGC, and now to all who hear this tune, thank you as well. Please come back soon. Want to hear your name in song? Check out our page on Patreon. All right. I would love to get your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell to stay connected. I, again, want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making this review possible. You can get info about the benefits of joining over at patreon.com/Spirit Blade Productions. Then I hope you'll check out our podcast and stay connected to all CGC content over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. No!